Hello and welcome to MCU Pod. I'm your host, Grant Davis, and alongside me are friends of the show. We're excited to have Will Cardini join us once again.
Hey, everybody.
There you go. Randy Lander.
Hello.
And Melissa Giramonti.
Hi.
And we're talking about Black Widow, the movie. The Marvel movie. You may have heard of it. If you're here and you haven't heard of it, that's weird choice. But it's out. We've given people the weekend. That's enough time to watch it, especially since they also put it on Disney Plus and people can pay $30 to watch it at home if they want. We figured that's enough time. We're eager to talk about this. So that's what we're doing today.
This is the first movie of the MCU pod, right?
Well, have we talked about other movies? This
No.
is the first new movie.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's the first new movie, the first MCU film that has come out in the lifespan of the MCU pod.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if we ever did like a deep dive into other movies. I don't think we have. So yeah, first movie review. This is the first film from the MCU that's come out in like 2.5 years now. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Was the last one the Spider-Man one?
Last one was Spider-Man.
Yeah. Did you guys like the second Spider-Man? It was okay. I
thought it was good.
I
I
loved it. Yeah, I liked it better than the first one, to be honest.
Whoa.
What?
Which
Whoa.
makes it my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Wow.
Okay.
Except for Spider-Verse, that's a different thing.
Why is it a different thing?
Because it's Sony and it's animated and it's got more Spider-Man in it. Look, I don't make the rules, except that I make the rules. And they're weird and abstract and apply only to me.
Well, we are going to be talking about the Black Widow movie, but before we do all that, I generally, if you're watching over on YouTube, we want to encourage you that you can go ahead and comment on the side, and we can pop your comments on the screen. Here's Nicole saying, hey. And we welcome you guys to engage with us and chat with us throughout the episode. It makes it a lot of fun.
More importantly, Nicole says, same Randy, which means Nicole agrees with me. As long as we're highlighting comments, I just seems like that one should be put up there.
Tom Holland is my favorite Spidey ever.
He's great.
He's good.
He's the only one who's accurately been Peter Parker, because Tobey Maguire's is awful, and so is Andrew Garfield.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
No. That's what I'm saying. That's my hot quake. Yeah, he's just garbage. I hear that Tobey Maguire is not even a nice person IRL either. So
I hear that too. Yeah,
I said it.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to remind people that if you are wanting to support the podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/MCU pod, and there you can make a per month pledge. You can become what we got here, a West Coast Avenger, or for $1 a month, a Defender for $2 a month, Fantastic Four, $4 a month, and there's Avengers, and Illuminati if you want to go all the way up to $20 a month. We do so appreciate all of the support that we've gotten from you guys thus far, and it means a lot to us that we're able to keep doing this show because of you, because you're paying the hosting costs, basically. It's very nice. Thank you guys so much for that. And with that, I only had one other little element of not house cleaning, but I did want to mention before we get into talking about Black Widow. Did you guys see the new trailer for the What If?
Yes.
You saw it, Randy.
I'm so excited.
The newest trailer was really cool. Both of them, it's just got such a good vibe with what's the actor's name who's basically playing the Watcher?
That is Jeffrey Wright, sir.
Jeffrey Wright. His voice, it all just has this mystical, magical feel to it, and yet there's something a little sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys get the sense that at the end of each episode, the TVA is going to come in and just cull that timeline?
I'm not sure the TVA is going to be around by the time What If happens. We'll see.
You don't think it's going to get passed on to Mobius, and he's going to be just the head of the TVA?
I think he's going to be the head of the jet ski division, and he's just going to jet ski around different timelines. He's going to show up like Stan Lee in every episode on a jet ski. That's my prediction. And if I'm wrong, it just sounds like a crazy person talking.
That is the best prediction I think I've heard thus far.
I'm waiting for the race between him and Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yes, Mobius is the new Stan Lee. That is correct.
If Mobius could just, have a mustache and have the Ray-Bans on and just be on a jet ski in some ludicrous fashion in every single movie.
No matter where it is, out in space. I'm with Melissa. I think Fantastic Four, they haven't told us much about it, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a jet ski Silver Surfer race in there.
Silver Surfer's coming to the planet.
That's right.
Mobius jet skis past him. Opposite direction. Little high five scene.
Yes.
Oh, man. That'd be beautiful. All right. Well, you guys ready to jump in? We're going to talk about Black Widow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we start this the same way always. That's right. It's snap judgment time. Let's go ahead and start with Will. You want to give us your snap judgment? Do you not want to go first?
No, I can go first. I wasn't expecting it. Okay, so my snap judgment is that I feel like the movie was a mixed bag to me. There were some cool action scenes, and I really liked Florence Pugh in it and David Harbour as Yelena and Red Guardian, respectively. But I just kind of felt like Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow were overshadowed by Florence Pugh a little bit, to where she got a lot of the good one-liners. I was kind of poking fun at the character of Black Widow in a way that was, I thought it was good to kind of like call out, I think it's called like the lampshade, like calling out the tropes of her posing and all that, and like, looking sexy for the male gaze. And so I thought that was good, but also kind of like, I feel like she got all these good quips in, and I didn't feel the same way about Black Widow.
And then they killed her. Killed Black Widow. Okay. All right. Melissa, what were you feeling?
I really enjoyed it. This was my first movie back on a big screen since before, Thanos hit Earth or whatever the heck happened. So it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly the kind of film that I needed to see to get back into, the big screen experience. I really enjoyed it. I do see what you mean, though, Will, with, Natasha being a bit overshadowed by Yelena. But at the same time, I really liked that dynamic because Yelena just feels kind of like that younger sister with the attitude. And as someone who has a younger sister with attitude, I really digged that dynamic. But for me, it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of, nods to things that I enjoy, like spy dramas. In the intro, I was getting a little bit of the Americans vibe from it. So it was exactly what I needed. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I have a few little things that, they probably could have done more with, but overall, this was an enjoyable movie-going experience.
Yeah. All right. Randy, what do you got?
As you guys all know, I'm super in the tank for all the Marvel movies. I even like Thor 2 and Iron Man 3.
Stop
and,
it.
Me too.
And I really love this. I put it, I haven't ranked in my canon yet where I put it. It's lower in the tiers for me because I feel like one of the things I like about the Marvel movies is that they are part of the shared universe. And this felt the most standalone of any of the Marvel movies because, I mean, it's over. Like we know going in that Black Widow is gone. So we know where her story ends, unless they pulled some kind of switcheroo, which they did not. And so this felt a bit like a sort of out of time standalone spy thriller. And so I was hoping we'd get a little bit of like the story about her and Winter Soldier, or a surprise appearance by the same way we had like Falcon show up on Ant-Man and nobody expected it. I would have loved someone from the Marvel Universe besides General Ross, which is a pretty lame cameo. I was hoping for a little more connective tissue to the MCU. That said, aside from that, I thought this was a fantastic spy thriller. I thought that Florence Pugh was great. David Harbour was amazing. I thought that Rachel Weisz did a great job. And I have gripes about Taskmaster, but I can also make the case for why it works the way it does in the MCU and why they did what they did.
All right, fair. I would say that while I understand how you feel like this was the last movie and a standalone movie for Black Widow, I think it was an origin movie for the new Black Widow, and in that way it does actually still tie into the larger MCU, because clearly they're setting up Yelena as the new Black Widow, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and it's an origin story for Florence Pugh to kind of step in and take over the mantle, and in that regard, it does work, and it does a great job, I thought, of fleshing out some of the details of what happens in between the Civil War and then Infinity War, as well as strengthen the Black Widow character. And this is just something that was needed much earlier than this. It should have happened in between, before Infinity War came out. This movie would have been great right there, and they wouldn't need that end scene, the post-credit scene there in that case. By the way, we're gonna spoil all this movie, so hopefully you have watched this. I thought that the action scenes were really good in this movie. I was kind of blown away by how well shot and clearly defined a lot of the action was, as well as feeling very visceral. Like when she gets picked up and thrown into the door frame, you feel it as her body flings and flails across the door frame, right? Or up into a cabinet, or when they punch through a body through the glass, you feel all the shards. Like it has punch, and that's a testament to the cinematography, the sound and editing, all of it. Like just it really has a sense that I was like, oh, I haven't seen this in a lot of the Marvel movies, and I hope some of that powerful visceralness carries through with like the upcoming Shang-Chi movie.
It's interesting, Greg, that you say that, because if you go and compare this to, say, Civil War, Winter Soldier, which are also very visceral and violent, but they're definitely doing super soldier stuff, and so things hit differently.
Right.
So they're doing the same
across the room, right?
Right. There's something about this where it felt they wanted to make it feel a little more. I mean, it's not small. That action scene at the end is big and imaginative, but it feels more real in some ways. It feels like when she bangs off things as she's falling, it's you feel that you get that kind of oof, like you're watching somebody get hurt.
Right.
Which it's not the same when you're watching like Cap and Winter Soldier throw down, because a lot of those sound effects, we get the big, the knockdown sound effects. We know that they're like hitting a lot harder. We know they can be hit a lot harder. This feels like people. Even when you got somebody like Red Guardian who has some kind of super soldier abilities, you're right. It's presented. It's kind of like in the comics, the difference between the Ed Brubaker Captain America and the Mark Gruenwald Captain America. They're both the same character, but one of them is like gritty espionage, and the other one is like four-color superheroics.
Right. I'm gonna pull up this tweet here. Marvel's got two kinds of movies: cool ones to watch while you're stoned, and the hat ones. We are definitely in the hat one here. That said, I also really love the family dynamic that they established in this movie. All the actors, it felt like family, and I haven't seen F9, so I'm just really annoyed by all the Dom Toretto stuff. But here, like, it felt like a very dysfunctional family in a way, and I thought that all of the actors did a great job together to earn that. That said, both Taskmaster and the dude, whatever his name is, Dokov or whatever, Dreykov, both felt really not fleshed out, to the point where I was just kind of like, there's something really dangerous and fascinating about Dreykov, whatever, that I wish that they did more with the character to make me understand and fear and hate him rather than, oh, we thought this guy was dead. Turns out he's not dead, and now his nose is broken and his ring's gone. Like, it was just kind of like, I don't know. That was like, we got like 2 scenes with the bad guy, and it didn't feel like enough, especially for how heavy it is. The sex trafficking and the child soldiers and all of that was going on. And then Taskmaster, I don't understand much from the comics, but my understanding is that character is supposed to be akin to Deadpool in the way that they are a big talker. And that's not happening here. But that said, I thought the reveal was cool. And I just hope that we get to see more in the future then, if that's the case.
Can I do my Taskmaster corner real quick?
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Randy's Taskmaster corner.
So,
do I have a graphic for
that? Probably not. I hope not. If you anticipated this, you're better than Taskmaster himself. Taskmaster in the comics, yeah, he's got like a skull face mask. I mean, it's a pretty good translation, but he's a little more garish and cartoony in the comics. And his whole deal is that he's a mutant who has what they call photographic reflexes. He can duplicate anything anyone does, and so he studied Captain America and all these other people, and he has a bow and he has a shield and all this kind of stuff. But when he showed up, basically, instead of being the guy who like threw down with the heroes, he decides to use these abilities to start a school for henchmen. So he's basically the guy he
like Venture Brothers or something.
Yeah, he trains up all the henchmen that work for all the other villains, and then the Avengers find his henchman school and bust it up, and that's how he winds up fighting them. And as they've gone on, Joe Kelly wrote a Deadpool run where Taskmaster was like his buddy, and they had kind of a friendly relationship, and they fleshed him out a little bit there. And then since then, they've had him operating more as a bit of a mercenary. He is the guy who trained John Walker how to throw Cap's shield because he he could do it, and so he sort of broke it down for him how Captain America does it. Because they couldn't get Captain America, which is one of his coolest moments in the comics. It's a little throwaway thing, but he got to shave some of his prison time by teaching the new Captain America how to throw the shield.
So, do you think that we're gonna see Taskmaster be part of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's crew then?
Thunderbolts, absolutely, I do.
Okay,
but I think that the whole snappy dialogue and all that kind of thing, it would have been nice, but it wouldn't have worked for this movie because this movie he needed to be the Terminator. He needed to be scary as hell, and they did a great job with that. I thought the whole, as you showed the pictures, like mapping on what they're doing all the other people's moves, like when he's using the sword like Ronin, when he gets in the Black Panther pose, it's really, really cool. And so, yeah, people are making those comparisons to Deadpool and to Ryan Reynolds' original Deadpool in Wolverine Origins, and it's not that bad. That's really harsh. I thought as scary Terminator villain, it was good. I liked the mind control explanation for it, and I thought the reveal, even though it was not like the craziest unexpected reveal, was good. And I think that they can redeem the character and make them not the comics version, but an interesting MCU version. I think Valentina is definitely building a Thunderbolts team, which is going to have US Agent and the new Black Widow and Taskmaster and who knows, and probably Zemo. And I'm in for that. So that's my thoughts.
Melissa, what was your sense of Taskmaster?
I did not see the reveal coming. I think I need to watch it a couple more times because I think I probably lost a few things watching it at a drive-in. But I thought it was interesting that no one was immune to what Dreykov was up to, like not even his own child. And at the same time, some people may see that as, this was his way to save the child. I looked at it more like every human life to him, every female human life to him is a commodity. It is something that he can monetize, that he can use to serve his ultimate purposes.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the reveal. Like that did take me by surprise, and the potential for this character going forward. And now that she's no longer under this mind control, I'm really fascinated to see that. But initially I was like, my gosh, we've got like a Terminator, but like this is the Terminator of the MCU. And I wasn't familiar with the character going into it. So I had zero foundation going in. But yeah, I was really intrigued by it. And, I'm curious to see how in future, whether it be films or maybe a Disney Plus series, how that character, moves on from being under her dad's control.
Mhm.
Right. We have a few snap judgments from the viewing audience here. I was going to hit on. Nicole Jackson says, I feel like Scarlett was kind of sad in the movie, knowing it's her last. Did you guys get a sad vibe from her?
I got a tired vibe.
Yeah.
I'd say more like a sense of finality. Like, yeah. And there were a couple of points where I don't know if it was just in the editing or if it was in the performance where it kind of felt like going through the motions. So, but I think that might be more like an editing choice rather than her not giving her all to the performance.
Yeah, I think she had a tough role here. Like Florence Pugh got to do the one-liners and got to be the new young ingenue. David Harbour got to choose senior like nobody's business. She had to be, even more than Rachel Weisz, I think she had to be kind of the mom of this family, like the one who had like been through all this. She's done her redemption arc, and she is just tired of all this bullshit, and then she's got to dive back into it. And I think that's a hard note to play, and I think she played it pretty well. Also, wasn't it her decision to quit? Didn't Scarlett Johansson bow out at this point?
Oh, did she say, I want to jump down the pit with the Soul Stone? Was her
No,
call?
but I mean, didn't she? I mean, I thought she said this was to be her last movie or something. Because they could easily do more flashback movies. There's 5 years between this and an Endgame, and we don't know everything she was up to.
Yeah, or they it's the MCU. They could bring her back.
They could. Yeah.
I think I did read something earlier this week that she was, needed to take a break from this character because it's taken up so much of her life for so long, and it's physically and mentally exhausting to play. And I get that, and I respect it.
Yeah.
Shul One says Black Samar, which is great because I was like, is it just if Florence Pugh's in something, it's gonna be really heavy and somber? And the intro credit sequence for this movie did a lot of heavy lifting for the audience. For like, here's the exposition of what you need to know about the Black Widow character, but also setting a really dark tone that a little bit disappointingly, I feel like they avoided touching too much on afterwards. Like that credit sequence was little children being ripped away and stuffed into cellars and just like the sex trafficking trade. And I'm like, oh, it's so bleak and horrible. And then it's just kind of glossed over with like nyuk jokes from sisters who have shared trauma, but they're not really touching too much on it.
But did you feel like, I thought the ending fights and stuff were pretty brutal. Like this feels like the first Marvel movie I couldn't show a younger kid. Like even Winter Soldier, as violent as it is still superhero-y. This felt a little, like you said, gritty, a little more raw, a little more real. And I feel like the opening credits and that last sequence, even though it's got a lot of bombast, it's in a flying fortress, but the conversation between her and Dreykov is pretty raw. And I feel like would be maybe tough on younger kids.
Tough on adults.
I almost wonder if they were, it's trying to go for a more mature audience rather than make it a little more like as family friendly as they could. How deep they would have went in on the human trafficking and the child soldiers and all that, because those are themes that, in the grand scheme of Marvel things, like that'd get slapped probably with an R rating, and I don't think that would do well box office wise. Right. So I'd be curious, like if they ever released a cut that gets into that, because those are such important issues. And kudos to Marvel for including it, because there are ways they could have just glossed over all of that. They could have found ways around it. Right. But to totally, talk about forced sterilization, even if it is in a comedic way. And I have to admit, I kind of enjoyed their banter because it felt a lot like friends and family of mine. Like, someone says, oh, it must be your time of the month. Well, as a matter of fact, like, here we go. And to me, that just felt very kind of, I mean, I'm partial to gallows humor and sarcasm, so I think that's why that worked for me. But I also would love to have seen what this film could have been if they had have gone like balls to the wall on those issues.
Yeah, just really bleak and heavy, and like, do you know the fucking trauma that
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just abandoned us to?
Yeah. And the only issue I have with that though is that the young girls don't have a lot of movies for them. Like Harley Quinn was R-rated, and Captain Marvel was a good like aspirational film, but like not that you necessarily want to aspire to be a child soldier who has been forcibly sterilized, but there have not been a lot of female-led superhero movies, and I like them to keep it at least a little bit accessible to like teenage girls at least. And I think that we could lose that by making it a little darker. But like you, I would love to see the alternate version of it. That like, what would an R-rated version of this look like?
When are we gonna get our R-rated Marvel movies? We gotta wait.
It's never gonna happen, guys.
It's gonna be
It's
Deadpool.
never gonna
Grant.
happen.
It's gonna be Deadpool. Just
Okay. Shul One also says enjoyed the family dynamic, but Red Guardian felt underutilized in terms of action, especially at the end. I feel that's a good thing. David Harbour played a great a backup character. You know, he wasn't trying to steal the limelight, and I think that's good overall.
Yeah. That said, though, when he threw down with Taskmaster at the end, I was expecting that to be a big thing, and it wasn't. It was just kind of it just happened. And,
everyone was like, "Oh, he's gonna die," and then he didn't. It was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
And also they made so many references to the Captain America thing that I kind of wanted him when Taskmaster like pulls up the shield and starts fighting. I wanted him to notice that and be like, act like he was having a rematch with Cap or something. And they never made any of that reference, which was kind of too bad.
But didn't that never even I mean, that was just like him telling stories, right?
Well, here's the thing.
Was it?
When in the prison, I would have believed he was just lying. He was just boasting. But he asked Natasha, did Cap ever mention me? Like, there's no reason for him to say that if he's lying. He fully believes he met a Captain America in the 80s. I don't know who it was, but it's very clear he met a Cap in the 80s.
You think it's what's his name?
It couldn't be Isaiah.
It wouldn't be Isaiah. Was Isaiah in prison at that point?
Well, yeah. Well, he'd be. You know, he was put in prison, but also Isaiah's black, and I think that Red Guardian would have noticed.
It'd be hilarious if he didn't.
That's actually true. But I mean, he thinks he was Steve Rogers because he asked Natasha about it. So it implies the existence of a Captain America somewhere in the 70s and 80s, which that is one of the few bits of little MCU connective tissue that I picked up on and was super excited about.
It was curious, though. I wonder if someone else might have been holding the shield in the 80s and like doing undercover ops.
Yeah.
I definitely did not get I remember that line and I did not get that impression at all. I was like, he's just like so full of himself. Like he thinks that Captain America would talk about him, you know, even it just like the existence of this like antagonist, even if he never fought him. But
maybe.
I guess I am calling him a liar.
David Harbour was a lot of fun though as Red Guardian, and especially as a complex character, because all of us now know him from Stranger Things and are I think predisposed to wanting to root for him as this lovable protective father figure that we assumed it was. And then you find like right in the beginning he abandons both of those girls back to being child soldiers, and it's like, oh, we have to reassess. And the nuance that he has to play with that type of character, and like the damage. By the way, his tattoo here is got Elena and Natasha as the names in Cyrillic or something. I think.
Nice. Yeah.
But that idea that he, you know, he's torn between his service to country and, you know, that's just the tragic reality of the situation, is that he had no control. He's just a soldier. And yet he recognizes he did something wrong, but doesn't really want to own up to it. I thought it was played really well, because it's a fine line that you see him kind of toggle back and forth on.
Well, he's clearly a bit of a boastful narcissist, but at the same time, yeah, you're right. There's that underpinning of there's just enough in humanity in him to realize, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I did something bad. Like I should have protected these girls.
I
Go ahead.
I will say one thing that didn't make sense to me in the movie, and I thought it was a cool scene, was like why they broke him out of prison. He's been in prison for decades, and they think he's going to know the present location of Red Room, but even Elena doesn't know it. I mean,
Well, he
it just
knew
doesn't make any
of
sense.
the mom. Why break him out and then just hover with a helicopter long enough for all the other prisoners to come beat the shit out of him? It was like, what's going on here? Throw a
Look,
rope or something, guys.
Because there needed to be an action sequence.
That's what it felt like.
And
100%.
it was a cool as hell action sequence.
It was. I'm not saying it was cool. It was definitely cool, but
yeah, it was a bit of stretch story logic of well, why would they rescue him? Well, he knows where the Red Room is. Does he? No, he does not.
Can I fix that scene real quick? They're flying with a helicopter, drop the rope, and realize the rope doesn't reach him. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, we don't have long enough rope. Let's rethink this.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all the prisoners come out. Then it would have been funny. And it would be fine, like why they just hovered there and didn't do anything. On that note, I also wanted to hit this one more snap judgment from Angélie Bourgeois, I'm guessing. Yelena stole the show, and I'm excited to see what the MCU does with her.
Mhm.
Yes,
100%.
Let's talk about Florence Pugh's character because
And her vest.
and her vest, because she was awesome. She was excellent. Melissa, what do you think?
She was fantastic. She definitely stole every scene she was in, stole the movie for me. And just everything about her. Like I mentioned in our snap judgments, like the big sister, little sister dynamic. I just love that. The older one who feels she has to be responsible and the younger one who, calls out all the BS and all that stuff. I thought that was fantastic. I have like the roles that I'm most familiar with when it comes to Florence Pugh. There was her turn in Little Women, which I did not enjoy. I haven't gotten up the courage to watch Midsommar yet. But I love her in Fighting with My Family, which she plays a wrestler. And it's a really awesome comedy. So it's a dramedy. So I really like her in those type of roles. And she brought some of that into her portrayal of Yelena. Like calling out, you're such a poser, like all of like calling out her big sister. Like I could picture that happening with me and my sister. Like that totally has happened in the past. It was like the right dynamic. And yes, she did steal the scenes when this was supposed to be Black Widow's movie. But I do like how they've set her up for the future, the post-credit scene. Like I was like giddy over that. I can't wait to see more of her in this role because I think she might be one of my favorite MCU characters now.
Well, I guess she's going to recur in Hawkeye later this year.
Mm-hmm.
We know that for sure.
Do they announce that?
That's what we've heard. It's out there that they've said that, but yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, give me all the Valentina all the time and everything. Like, I'm here for Valentina.
Like, I didn't know how they were gonna get around. Like Nick Fury, if Samuel Jackson moved on, but Valentina as like the snarkier Nick Fury is even better. Like, I love her in this role.
It's basically, in a lot of ways, it feels like her character from Veep, which is what I love. Like she's Selena, except now she's Valentina.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and I loved her. I guess this was supposed to be her introduction. This was supposed to come out well before Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, but it ended up working out. Although I'm guessing that they reshot some of the scenes or like rewrote it a little bit for the exchange, how that's going down, so that it didn't require as much of an introduction of who are you and everything. Maybe. I don't know.
Can I tell you my favorite line from Yelena in this whole movie? Is the bit, and there's a callback to it later on, but the bit where she's in the helicopter and they're shooting at her, and she's like, "This would be a cool way to die." Like, that is such millennial Gen Z energy. I fucking love that. And then later on, when they're about to cut her open, she's like, "This is a much less cool way to die." I thought that was great. I loved that.
Right, that made me laugh for sure.
We had some other cool little like Easter eggs and stuff hidden in the background. I was thinking let's go ahead and hit on those. And since we have Randy here, you can also explain stuff. Because I don't know this stuff. But at one point, Red Guardian is arm wrestling a dude who he refers to as a bear.
Yes, Ursa.
And what is this? Who's
So-
Ursa?
The Soviet super soldiers, aka the Winter Guard, is Russia's superhero team, and they have a brother and sister, Dark Star and Vanguard, and an inventor named Gremlin, who is an Iron Man villain. Ursa Major is a major in the Russian army who can transform into a bear, and I was so happy when they said Ursa, and a little bit miffed that he never turned into a bear.
Also, his arm just got snapped. So
Yeah.
well, not the
if you can-
strongest bear.
If you can turn into a bear, you can fix that. Everybody knows lycanthropes heal when they turn into their bear form. So he should have turned.
Oops.
I'm
Okay.
just saying he should have turned into a bear. Would have fixed the arm right up.
I think that's an Ursa thrope, Randy.
You're right. My bad.
This isn't so much. This isn't like an Easter egg or anything, but we got the reveal of. Now I didn't write down the actor's name, but he's playing Rick Mason.
Yes, Rick Mason.
And he's basically a Q-esque character who like is just a fixer. You can like hand her all the equipment she needs. But who's Rick Mason?
So in the comics, this is a very deep cut. There's a graphic novel called The Agent that was about Rick Mason, who is basically a spy who used all these gadgets from his supervillain father, the Tinkerer, who's an old man in the Marvel Universe. In this universe, Phineas Mason is the youngish guy from Vulture's crew
Mhm.
who was messing. So his name is Mason. Vulture calls him that. So I'm wondering if they're going to make them brothers, maybe, instead of father and son. But they've got to be connected. I mean, I guess there's more than one Mason in the world, but in the comics they're connected, and I bet they're going to pull on that thread.
I'm with you, Idlones. I thought he was great.
He was
in
great.
his role. Immediately charming. And in interviews, he was talking about like his actual relationship with Black Widow, maybe more behind the scenes or in scenes that got cut, is more than platonic. He described it as, and I just felt the chemistry between the characters that felt pretty genuine. He just was natural and effortless in this.
Yeah.
Has
Agreed.
there ever been a sex scene in an MCU movie? I don't think so.
There was a near showering together in Avengers 2. That's as close as we got, I think. Oh, wait, no. The first Iron Man, we see him tumble onto the bed with Christine Everhart's report character. That's as close as we got.
Wow.
That's so ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Why do
This
you
is
remember
totally
the names of
tangent.
the reporters and all that?
Look, I've watched these movies a lot, all right?
Oh man, that is kind of ridiculous. Let's see, what is the next one I got? Oh, here we go. Explain this image, Randy.
What?
Do you know who this is?
I don't know who that is.
Is the character's name Iron Maiden? Am I wrong about that?
That's
Oh, man.
Rachel Weisz's character. I read something that was saying that that's who she is in the comics, is Iron Maiden.
What?
You don't, Randy. If you don't know, no one knows.
What? No, I mean, I'm currently reading all the Black Widow stuff, or as much as I can, because there's a lot of it, to do my Loose Cannon, which is my comics podcast. We're recording on Saturday, and so I've been cramming Black Widow stuff. I have not run across this character, so she's either newish or real obscure. Yep, you've stumped me. I do not know.
Wow.
It's definitely not newish, just based on looking at some images from comics. It's an older comic book. Just from the pages, it looks like an older illustration style.
I do not know this character.
But,
So are these circled screenshots from her house?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think in the background of her backroom office, it
Yeah.
had this mask, and so people were linking together that she's Iron Maiden. I think there was another shot that showed that she has like a little strip of dyed red hair in the back of her hair, which I thought was supposed to be like a memorial for Black Widow for her daughter.
Hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, it'd be cool to see more of her. What'd you guys think of Rachel Weisz's character? We didn't talk about her. We talked about everyone else in
Yeah.
the family.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I thought the movie could have used a bit more of, was more of Melina. I would have loved to have learned more about her, how she went from, not necessarily went from, but like what brought her to the US besides like being with these, like protecting these children and infiltrating things. Like the jumps weren't seamless in her character. Like, I mean, I've guessed, like I've made guesses about, how she ended up there, and then how she ended up like back in the program when all of them ended up back into it after, the kids were taken in that. But definitely we could have used more of her. The little bit we did get of her, I thought she was really she was an interesting character, because at the same time she is pragmatic, and she's, on mission. She's a scientist. She's also, those little nods of like the mothering instinct in her. Like, even though she tries to deny it, it's a part of her. Like, even though these aren't her actual children, like there's no completely severing that tie that she has with them. So
how do you do it for 3 years? How do you care for a kid for 3 years and not have that tether?
Exactly.
Well, I think it's interesting. You mentioned, I think that would have been nice to see more of her, because there's a lot implied. She talks about having been cycled through the Red Room 4 times. And as you said, she's a scientist. Like, she was the one on mission. David Harbour's role as Red Guardian is he's muscle, and he says that a few times. Like, so you can get that, and you get what he was, and you get everything he was pretty easily. He's this braggart, this guy who's about being the Soviet super soldier, and he's about the physical and all this kind of stuff. She was the one who understood the science and what they were stealing and why they were stealing it. And in addition to being a scientist, she's also like a trained espionage operative, because she gets on that costume and you can tell she's had Black Widow training. So there's all this implied, but we don't ever see any of it, and they don't talk about it. So I thought Rachel Weisz was great, and I think they did a little bit of the thing that they sometimes do, which is that they know Rachel Weisz can do a lot with a little, and so they didn't give her much to do, because she did great stuff with the stuff she was given. But if they'd given her a meteor role, I just can imagine how much stronger this could have been. So I want a Black Widow too, with Melina and David Harbour and Florence Pugh. Like, you don't have to have Scarlett Johansson. If you have a new Black Widow. And so I would love to see more of these characters. And I think Melina's got a whole lot of story you could do, because if she was the Cold War Black Widow, she was the 80s Black Widow in the same way there was Red Guardian. That's filling in a whole part of Marvel Cinematic Universe history that we have not seen.
I mean, Nicole's asking, were Elena and Red Guardian a couple in quote unquote real life? I mean, I think that we weren't even familiar with the Elena character, right? As far as her being potentially
Melina.
Rather.
Yeah.
Melina.
Well, is the question, I guess there's two versions of that question. One is, were they a couple in the comics continuity? In which case the answer is no. Red Guardian actually is not Black Widow's adoptive father. He was her husband. He was an astronaut who became Red Guardian and then was married to her, and then they faked his death. So in the comics, he's her first husband. But in real life, in terms of like in their cover operation, I think I look back to the Americans, where Red Guardian talks about them being put together, and they have that flirtatious thing together where it's clear that even if they weren't supposed to be romantically linked, you live 3 years as husband and wife. If you watch the Americans, you know what happens.
69, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
I remember that.
That's what happens. It was very memorable.
Did y'all feel like
sorry,
Melina's heel turn was, I mean, not heel turn, I guess, if it's you're being good, but I know they kind of like cut that part out to preserve the surprise that she's working with them. But to me, it's just like I felt like I wanted more than just like that one, oh, you kept this book, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I felt like that moment didn't do enough to support her total change of heart.
Right. I guess I never felt like there was only 1 second there where I felt like she was bad. Like, she arguably did less than Red Guardian handed the kids over without a word. I feel like Melina we didn't see what her reaction was to it. So the only time we had her being bad was that she had called the Red Room, and then she seemingly betrayed Elena. But
well, she developed she developed a chemical brainwashing program. I mean,
Sure,
that's
yeah.
like horrifyingly evil.
That's true. That's true.
How long did it take you guys to realize that the two girls weren't actually Red Guardian's kids? Like in the beginning, when like he's talking to Dreykov on the airfield, the tarmac, whatever, in
Yeah.
Cuba, and the girls are fighting and trying to get back to him. I was like, I don't understand this dynamic. What is this dad doing?
Yeah, that they were just agents. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, the girls are agents too. I didn't realize that until like way later when both the sisters are talking when they're adults. I was like, oh, that's why they're both agents too, and they're not biologically related. Okay.
Which, by the way, goes back to a line. They did a lot with the little bits of lines we've had, because in Avengers, when the little girl gets Mark Ruffalo over to Black Widow's place, he says they make spies that young, and she says I was. So the implication is that she's been a spy since she was a little girl, and they played that off here. Like there's a lot of little things. Dreykov's daughter was a line, like a lot of little throwaway lines that they used to build this script.
It's impressive.
Yeah, in that opening part, I got the sense like Natasha's already been through the program. She's already aware of what's going on, whereas Yelena hasn't gotten to that point yet. And so she thinks these are her, like I think that she believes these are her parents. This is her big sister. She's never really known anything else. And that's why it made that like so much more traumatic to watch, that this child is being ripped away from the only family she's ever known.
Even at the part where Black Widow confronts her at that house in where I can't name the place.
Budapest.
Where she's like she says, "You're my sister," and she's like, "I'm not your sister." Even then I thought that Natasha was just saying that. Like, oh, they're clearly sisters, and she's just being cold and distant. And I was like, oh no, I'm wrong.
They're not actually related.
And that kind of takes it back to Melina a bit. Is like, I don't know if Melina was necessarily doing what she was doing to be an evil mastermind. She was doing what she was tasked for the greater good of her country, who she's working in service of. And villains who think that what they're doing is altruistic always work the best in anything. So I don't think that she thought what she was doing was bad at the time. But then through these two girls who she was responsible for a while and was a mother figure to, through them, she realizes, oh, wait, maybe that wasn't a good thing.
Well, and it's an abstraction to her, right? Like we see it with the pigs. Like she clearly cares for the pigs. She named one Alexei, but then she almost lets it die of oxygen starvation, because to her it's all science. And she's like, "What's the big deal? It had 11 more seconds." Like she's a little bit cold and scientific, and I think that is what we get, is maybe that she had not made that connection of, oh wait, these are people.
I think that one of the other elements that kind of bugged me is how awful and traumatizing of a life all these women had through the Red Room program. And what I understand seeing that Natasha and Yelena both are very in control of the moment. They handle themselves with control, but for me, for how intense everything was set up, I think I wanted a little bit more of letting loose with just pure rage. Just anger and rage distilled into just like channeling that into the moment to emphasize all of how awful that trauma was. Like more of like a Wolverine berserker kind of thing, you know? Like I wanted to I wanted that cathartic just delivery of that, and I don't know, that might have underscored what they were presenting a little bit more for me.
I think that would have been great with Yelena. With Natasha, I think she's already kind of worked through those issues. So by this point in her story, she's beyond that. Like she's dealt with her rage. So that her not totally, raging out in this film, I get that.
Mhm.
It would have really made sense for Yelena to have more of that, catharsis, because she's still early on in her journey after the Red Room.
But also, every time we've ever seen Natasha throughout the MCU, no matter the situation, she's always 100% calm. It doesn't matter whether she's being like backed into a corner during Civil War, when she sort of switched sides, when she's fighting Hawkeye, like she's always a little bit flip. When she's interrogating a god who basically like threatens to have her best friend, torture and murder her, the only emotion she shows is fake to get him to give up information. Like she is so in control and has been, and I think that's
And
meant to be
it
sort of the way
makes sense.
that's the way she processed her trauma. Yeah.
If they're going to make other concessions for plot over pure character motivation, this is one where I would have also done it, I guess.
Yeah.
Give us
that.
the uncharacteristic rage just coming out to sell that. I had a few more cool little Easter eggs I wanted to point out. I'm not sure if this one is intentional or not, but I'm going to pull it up here and get your thoughts. Here's a picture of Taskmaster when fighting Red Guardian. And what is going on here on the wrist? Is that Wolverine claws that came out?
No, it's just the knife, Grant. There's no Wolverine claws.
Is that not Wolverine claws right here?
No, he has to have 3 to be a Wolverine claws.
I don't know. I thought maybe it was Wolverine claws.
I don't think
excited.
so. I don't think so.
Is it made of adamantium?
I'm gonna read into this how I want, Randy.
No, that knife is actually Mephisto.
Mm. That makes sense.
Kind of Mephisto. They made a reference to the Crimson Dynamo.
They did.
Explain.
Crimson Dynamo is Iron Man's alternate number. His name is Anton Vanko, which is a name you may remember from Iron Man 2. You may not, because a lot of people choose not to remember Iron Man 2. But Whiplash's father was Anton Vanko, who is Crimson Dynamo. And so I don't think they're actually going to use this armored Soviet character. So they just did a bit where they someone called him the Crimson Dynamo, and he's like, no, it was the Red Guardian. You know that.
Oh, okay. Another cool one was this is not in the movie, but in the What If trailer, we see Natasha essentially as another version of like a Captain America, it looks like.
Or is she a Red Guardian?
What looks like a Red Guardian shield. And maybe she's fighting Captain Britain.
Yeah, she may be Captain Carter's nemesis or something.
Yeah, but
Ooh.
that'd be cool. That was pretty nifty, I thought. And then I'm not sure what other images I have here. Oh, I also have this. This is unrelated to this, but on Friday we're going to be talking about the final episode of Loki, and just on episode 5, Melissa and I were talking about the Wizard of Oz characters, and I told her that I was going to make a Photoshop of all of them as Wizard of Oz characters, and I did it.
Dreams do come true, kids.
I got them all, including little Toto.
I did not notice alligator Loki as Toto in that picture the first time I saw it. That's fantastic.
And if we're talking about more general MCU stuff, today's Emmy nominations came out, and holy smokes, WandaVision.
Yeah.
I was super excited. I thought this was something that would be overlooked by the Emmy voters, and they got something right. So I'm thrilled with that.
but they also nominated Don Cheadle for Best Supporting Actor in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and even Don Cheadle is like, "What? What are you talking about?
Why? Why?"
Those 5 minutes were apparently the most important minutes of all the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Was he even in it for 5 minutes?
No, it's like 2. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's really brief. Well, I guess, is there anything else that we missed on talking about this?
I would like to talk about the action as a general thing.
Okay.
The action in this movie is, I expect great action from Marvel, but that scene at the end where they're fighting on the debris of a falling Red Room, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Like, I don't think Point Break's ever done anything like that. The closest is maybe the fight in the dimensional thing at the end of the Spider-Verse. But even that's very different. Like, the notion of like using gravity in that way and like fighting on buildings as you're falling, like that was a really cool action sequence that I don't think I've seen done before.
Yeah, it was awesome when they smashed through.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, that was really good. I thought the action sequence when they go to rescue Red Guardian was pretty spectacular. I thought the chase on the motorcycle and the Taskmaster's big old tank was really, really well done. They gave that a lot of presence. I think honestly, I did see Fast 9 and I love Fast 9, but this gave Fast 9 a run for its money as far as like cool vehicle stunts and action and just borderline crazy action sequences.
Okay, going back to that city chase scene.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie with my wife, and she was like, "Why did they steal an SUV? Like normally in a movie like this, they would steal a sports car, right?
Yeah.
But Natasha and Yelena steal an SUV, and she was like, I don't know, maybe SUVs are marketed towards women more or something like that. But I thought that was like an interesting detail in there.
I thought it was for the terrain. Aren't they in like Norway? I thought maybe it was
No,
more
this
like
was when they're in Budapest.
Oh, okay. Huh. I don't
It
know.
did, but maybe it's got weak door hinges, and that's why they had to seal down. That was a sweet sequence, by the way, when Yelena flips the car around and then opens the door to have that smack into the bike. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty.
That was so good.
Yeah.
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 That was like in a Jackie Chan movie or something. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you guys wanted to touch upon?
I'm just curious. Did everybody who saw this in the theater and who saw this at home?
I saw it at a drive-in because our theaters don't open till later this week.
Right. But you got big screen experience.
Yeah,
That's the
as
thing.
big as I possibly could from
Yeah,
four
yeah.
rows back.
Yeah.
I saw it in a theater.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw it at home.
I also saw it at home. And a friend has a home theater, so we went over to his place and they like made popcorn and everything. So I got kind of the mid theater experience. But I would have liked to see it in the theater. And I do wonder if part of the reason it was not as overwhelming for me, why I didn't love it as much, is because I saw it at home. Like there is something to seeing something in a theater for the first time. So
Yeah, it was cool going in there. There was like 4 other people in the theater, and you know the weird thing about 4 other people in the theater is
that
why
I
do
sat
we
right
all-
next to them
Yeah,
and I
why
held
do
their
we all
hand the whole
still sit
movie.
next to each other. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know you people.
The weird thing was Grant sat down next to them, held their hand through the whole movie, and kept whispering things to them about the Marvel Universe. And that was the really weird thing.
That Black Widow. I was very helpful. They appreciated me being there. I'm like, hey, I have a year of talking to myself during movies at my house. I don't know I'm not supposed to talk in a theater anymore. No, but it was still a cool experience just getting back into a theater and just seeing it massive on the screen.
Yeah.
And
I
I had a recliner.
nice.
It was kind of sweet.
I had
I've
a
been to
recliner
the
too.
drive-in a couple of times, but I've not been back in a theater yet. So
I went back to
Still-
the theater to see Quiet Place 2 and to see Fast 9, and I was very happy with both those experiences. So
Well, I guess the one other thing that we kind of touched on, but we didn't fully, dive into is where this movie leaves off. Okay,
Yeah.
it does something kind of weirdly dumb, where they have to have some reason why Black Widow can't get on the helicarrier with everyone else to piece out of there. She's like, oh no, I'll stay and talk to General Ross, who obviously wants to arrest me and put me in the on the raft or whatever. I don't know why she stays, but somehow she just gets out of that. We don't see how, but 2 weeks later she's out and she's on the run, and she's somehow also gotten her own Quinjet.
yeah. So I have 2 thoughts on this. The same way I have mixed feelings about Taskmaster. The bad is that I'm like, man, I really wanted to see that Secret Avengers era. I want to see how Cap formed his team and how that, what they were doing on the run. I want a whole movie or series about that whole thing. And so I'm bummed we got nothing. Like she just gets 2 weeks later, she's out. On the other hand, I love that basically Ross taking her into custody is such a non-issue for her. They didn't even bother showing how she escaped. She's like, of course she escaped.
You think that's what it is? Do you think that
Yeah.
he actually did take her into custody and she just escaped?
100%. I think he took her to custody and she was like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting out now. I actually think that's what happened.
I just
Yeah.
figured she's like, I'm gonna go hide under another dead body over here, and then I'll just like not even have to deal with him.
No, I figure she was in custody because she when she's talking to Ross early on, she's like, look, you don't want to do this. I'm already gone. Like, you don't bother. And the implication, I think, is very much that she doesn't take him seriously as a threat.
Yeah.
That she can just break out any time. And I liked that. I think that's kind of a cool implication.
No, I got the same impression as Randy, but I also didn't think it made sense. Like, I just thought she would just like piece out of there. Like, what's she going to tell him that he couldn't figure out already? I don't know.
Right. Sure. He like sent all the data or whatever. I guess maybe she still had that little chip card. I don't know. No, she gave that to her sister. So again, what was she doing there? Oh, and then what's the deal with Mason getting the Quinjet? How does one just get a Quinjet?
How many Quinjets are there? Like, where did he just pick one up?
You know, there were a bunch on the deck. Maybe he got one that fell into the harbor during Winter Soldier. There were a bunch of those on the deck of those helicarriers. Maybe he fished one out and dried it off, and he had to dry it off the whole movie, and that's why he couldn't use it during the movie.
He had a really good valet costume.
Yeah, he
I'll
called
park your Quinjet for you.
You know how if your house gets any he just got a valet. You know how when your house gets if you get some flooding, you got to call those guys in with the big fans. He probably just had big fans running on that Quinjet during the whole movie and the whole 2 weeks, and then he's like, "I finally dried out this Quinjet that I got out of the bottom."
A lot
of
of sawdust. A lot of sawdust.
Yeah, it smells mildewy and terrible in that Quinjet. They don't talk about it, but it's
but it works. It's fine. And then Yelena. Black Widow's dead. Yelena's visiting the grave. She does the whistle, and everyone who watched this thought we were going to hear the whistle back. We don't hear the whistle back.
Nope.
But she's part of this group that seems to be getting recruited by Julia Louis-Dreyfus because no one's going to remember that other long name.
Countessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Thank you.
Yeah, no one else is going to remember that. She needs a shorter name. It needs to be a lot shorter. Shield.
I think some people call her Val. I think Yelena calls her Val.
Yeah, I think she told Walker to call her Val and then told him not to. So I think that's a thing. Yeah.
Okay, Val works. Val shows up. She's obviously recruiting people, and we know that she has the poor man's Captain America in her pocket, and then she's got Taskmaster presumably, and then Yelena,
and maybe all those widows.
But also Ross. Thunderbolt Ross. General Ross. He was acting kind of sick in the movie, right? He wasn't feeling well, and I guess the implication there is we're gonna get Red Hulk.
Maybe.
You think?
I mean, the Thunderbolts has had a huge, different rosters. U.S. Agent's never been a part of them that I know of, and neither is Black Widow. But Ghost from Ant-Man and Wasp was a member of one of the teams.
Okay,
so they could bring her in. I definitely think they're building towards doing their version of Thunderbolts, which Thunderbolts has been multiple things, but I think one of the things it's been is basically Marvel's Suicide Squad, the Redemption Squad, and I think that's probably the route they'll go here. We still don't know who Val works for. Is it S.H.I.E.L.D.? Is it Strike? Is it something new? Is she a private contractor? We have no idea.
I saw, this is Reddit, so whatever, grain of salt. But I saw someone on Reddit post that in the very beginning of Black Widow, she's talking on the cell phone to Ross, and she says, "You seem really desperate." And at the very end of the movie, Yelena is talking to Val and says, "You just seem very desperate."
Yeah.
And I thought someone was like, "Is this some way of saying that Yelena or that Val and Ross are working together and that there is a tie between those two for whatever the secret project is that Val's into?"
Maybe so.
I mean, I thought maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but at the same time, I like the implication that we might get Red Hulk, and that William Hurt gets to play him because that's a lot of fun, kind of ridiculous. And then otherwise she's going after Hawkeye. Yeah, and it'll be weird that we're presented with this. Yelena's definitely operating in the gray, I guess. She was an assassin, kind of like Black Widow, and yet we were rooting for her as the hero taking down the Red Room in this movie. But that doesn't mean that overall she can't just fall back to being an assassin for hire. I guess she could be a villain, and her going head to head against Hawkeye could be a neat way to have a Hawkeye and Black Widow movie.
Well, also Natasha
TV show.
Natasha was recruited by Hawkeye after she was sent to kill him. So there's some nice parallels there. If basically he gets to also help save Natasha's younger sister, and that'll be a fun relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the whistle, whatever, and then she'll rise from the grave somehow. The multiverse will bring another version back because that's what we're heading toward. And no one who ever signs a contract with Marvel ever gets to die, for the most part. All right, I think we're done. Unless you guys have any other closing thoughts, Will?
I got nothing.
Nothing.
We'll see. I hope they do Thunderbolts. I think that would be cool to see.
Melissa?
I'm here for more Val, and I'm here for more Yelena. So bring it on.
And on Friday, more Loki, maybe.
Oh, good God! I'm not going to be able to sleep like tonight, waiting for it.
That's right. We could just talk for another like 2 hours until everyone can just watch Loki.
It's like 4 hours, man.
Is it 4?
It's like 4 hours.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But
Midnight Pacific, right?
Yeah, I am gonna probably stay up tonight to watch it because I'm dying to see how it ends.
Randy, any closing thoughts on Black Widow?
Pretty happy with. I think it's a solid action. I wish that they had put this out between Civil War and everything else. Like after Civil War is clearly when this was supposed to be released, but for whatever reason they didn't make the movie then, and I wish they had. And I feel like it would have informed Black Widow going forward, and it probably would have hit harder when she died in Endgame. If we had known she had a family, if we had known all this stuff.
I think it'll be really cool for anyone new watching this movie to watch them in order and have this before Infinity War.
Yeah.
Except that any friend that recommends this needs to say, do not watch the post-credits.
Right, don't watch the post-credit scene. It's going to be just like what Captain Marvel and some of those where it's like you can watch it out of order, but it's going to give stuff away.
Yeah. Just don't watch the post-credit scene. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah.
And for my part, it was cool having Marvel movies back. I am excited to get to watch. I think Shang-Chi is going to be the next one in theaters in like November or so.
September.
September? Sweet. Even sooner. And that one looks badass. I'm going to try and see that in IMAX or something. But I want to say thank you to all of you guys who joined us here on the show. I know that we usually do these on Friday, and this was a bit of a last minute throw it up. Hey, we're gonna talk about this tonight. But the fact that you guys were able to jump on and join us was really cool. Appreciate y'all, and we will be back on Friday to talk about Loki, the season finale. Hopefully not series finale. I hope that we just get seasons and seasons of Loki.
There's at least going to be 2 seasons.
No way. They did not confirm a second season.
I thought even before the first episode aired.
I don't think they have.
I think you see this on Screen Rant.
I think you're being a trickster right now.
Just give me all the hittles straight into the eyes.
I would take it. I said some skeptical.
Season 2 is only about Alligator Loki. It's all it's the same show, but from Alligator Loki's point of view.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
100%.
All right. Well, we'll see if that's what we get. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll be back on Friday. Until then, MC you later.